All right. So I'm going to go ahead and begin. So first off, I just want to say, acknowledge each and every one of you that keep coming back. You know, I know there's probably some new people that have come for the first time, and so also acknowledge all the new people that are coming and those of you that keep coming back. And the divination is a lifestyle. And so when we make divination a part of our lives and we open up the world of divination as it becomes a lifestyle. It's not something that we just do when we're in a divination board reading. We start to enter into the mythological landscape of cosmological consciousness, which is very much about divination, a world of divination that is a lifestyle. Now, this class, why it's on Thursday, because it's related, it's in the flow of the art of ritual, the art of ritual that becomes Egyptian cosmology, that becomes divination. So I'm going to talk about that in a sec, but first I'm just going to make my offerings. For those of you that have been coming regularly, you know what I do and join me in doing it. And then for those for the first time, I'm just going to walk through what I do. I'm going to do a little quicker than usual because there's been a request to do less preparatory stuff and get right into it because there's so much content. So I'm going to do that. So I always have my little my medicine here that I know where it comes from. This cedar comes from my home with my partner and Roxy and Ruby now and Heather, all our roommates. This is this holy cedar medicine that grows around our home. So I'm just going to make my offerings. I'm going to do it quicker than usual, and then we're going to go ahead and get right into the class. Okay, so I just want to say thank you to these ancestral holy hands for the Nisan people. Shelley Pervert, Ginger Pervert, in this land called Ustama. Just want to say thank you in this eternal cycle home of Ouroboros, our magical art studio. And in that way, I want to acknowledge each and every one of your ancestral homelands that you are currently inhabiting. And want to just connect all of our ancestral homelands together that we're inhabiting. And in that way, saying thank you to all of the tribal people, all of the indigenous that have been caring for those sacred lands, and they're still living and still being. And every time we come into these ceremonies and these circles, we always think about them first, and really to help bring that good feeling and that good blessing into all of the original peoples of all of these ancestral homelands that we're inhabiting. It's a way to say thank you and extend our recognition and our good feelings in that way. And then here too, I want to say thank you to all of our benevolent ancestors and guides, each and every one of us, and how the magic of how our benevolent ancestors and guides have brought us together in this configuration on this day, April 2nd, on Thursday, and the mystery of what wants to be revealed through the oracle, through our alignment. Just want to say thank you. And in that way, giving a blessing to all of our bloodlines, where we come from, and what made us who we are today, and the dream that our ancestors had for our life here today in this moment in time. Thank you. And in that way, I want to say and call upon the holy beings of the 8 directions first. I'm going to call upon the holy beings like this: Aset in the east, Sekhmet in the southeast, Serket in the south, Aner and Rek in the southwest, Nebhet in the west, Anpu in the northwest, Neith in the north, Tehuti in the northeast, coming back to Aset, and then calling upon here at this time in the netherworld Oser, and calling upon Ma'at here in the body of Geb, aligned and attuned with the body of Nut in the sky. And here between the body of Nut in the sky and the body of Geb is the earth, calling upon the twins Shu and Tifnut. Here creating this pillar and holding this space so that the oracle, the crystal ball Nefertiti, and all of the team of Nefertiti, all of the Neteru that are all named here, and the unnamed ones, calling upon you at this time and to help bring forward any information, instruction, transmission, all that is of great use and of great benefit to each and every one of us here in this circle here today. And I want to say thank you for trusting in us to bring forward these divination technologies at this time. And I particularly have a special request to help me be a very clear vessel and channel for your instruction and your information to come forward as a gift offered and received into the web of life, into the web of all of our relations. And in that, may it make a beautiful And I just particularly want to acknowledge Neith. Neith is a deity. She sits in the north. And I spoke a lot about her yesterday, and she's just really presenting herself. Many people are feeling a very strong connection with her. And so I just want to speak a little bit about Neith, because she's very much related to the Divination Board. Oh, and before I do that, my name is Isis Indria, born in Mesa, Arizona, raised in the island of Guam. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a Chamorro woman. I represent the Pacific Islands, and I also represent Germany. And coming forward here with this divination board, this is the divination class. This board was a vision brought forward in 2004, coming into full manifestation in 2017 in partnership with my dear friend Johnny Ray. Our touch pattern is his Insta name. And so together the Oracle gave us this board as a gift for creation. And this divination board, there is not another divination board like this. This is the only one in existence, as far as I know at this point. And it's a board that is brought forward from a crystal ball. The crystal ball's name is the Oracle. She has been the center for thousands and thousands of rituals and people, thousands and thousands of people and hundreds of rituals since 2001. And so she has thousands of people in relation to her, and we all kind of work, for those of us that are still in the Oracle team, we work for the Oracle. So I'm here in service to the Oracle and to Nefertiti, and my role here is, I'm not here to teach you anything. I'm here to share what is coming through me from Nefertiti and the Oracle. I just want to be very, very clear about that. And so this is a ceremony. And in this ceremony, this is very much specifically tuning into the art of paying attention, the art of listening, and the art of receiving instruction. Those are some of the three primary functions and purposes and uses of this class. The art of paying attention, the art of listening, and the art of receiving instruction. This happens on multiple levels. One of the things about divination is we're learning how to listen, pay attention, and tap into multiple cosmic dimensions at the same time. In previous classes, I've spoke about the cosmic planes, and next week we're going to be speaking about the solar planes inside the seventh. So this class, divination, why I do Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is because there's a weaving that occurs, and this is where we talk about Neith. Neith is a Netaru. She is the weaver. She's the weaver of the grid of consciousness. She weaves this black abyss, and then she calls in the Milky Way and weaves this like white thread, the Milky Way, and then ties knots that are the stars, and those stars become the template from which we, as souls, descend into and come into manifestation in the net that we return to. And she's obviously the internet. So she's a very big part of how these Netaru transmissions are coming forward at this time. This is a time where the unseen is being seen. So maybe we had to all stop for a moment so that we can actually take a moment to receive the wisdom and instruction from the unseen. So I just want to acknowledge that. That candle represents the unseen also. So the weaving that Neith does with this Milky Way thread from the art of ritual to
Egyptian cosmology to divination. Why it happens in that flow is because the art of ritual is learning like simple basic technologies to bring us into a field of like where we are in reverence to the sacred. And sometimes we need to do certain ritual technologies in order to drop into that space. And like I say, every art of ritual, it's a way of life. Ritual is a way of life. We're doing rituals every day. We do them all the time. But do we have a level of consciousness and awareness in everything we're doing? And then we come around for certain rituals for very specific things like prayer, as an example. So the art of ritual, we take the time to sit with the sacred, and we take the time to learn how to be in a sacred, to thus make of our life an offering in this physical realm with these physical manifested technologies. Then on Wednesday, we study Egyptian cosmology. And in that way, with Egyptian cosmology, we're starting to learn the technologies and the languages of the deities, the Neteru, the principles and qualities of divinity, and the principles and qualities of the natural world, from the far reaches of the cosmos to this physical plane. And we start to learn the details and the subtleties of those Neteru, of the Neteru. So we're starting to build a relationship with this cosmological plane right here, planet Earth, in relationship to multiple planes moving in all directions. And then it's actually a very detailed cosmological design. And so we're starting to build a relationship with multiple dimensions. Then we come to divination. And divination is when we become stewards in service, tapped into the multiple dimensions of the cosmological map of the universe on planet Earth to be of service to this great turning. And so that's why it's in that order. And why we do divination on the day of Jupiter is because Jupiter is a day of expansion. So we're starting to expand our awareness into the body of the divination world, divination house. Now, there are many different kinds of divination. I think I spoke once about the history of magic carpets. The magic carpets actually originated as a divination rug. How it would be is that a certain person would weave the cosmological map of the universe on a loom, and then lay this is why probably I'm obsessed with textiles, then lay the loomed fabric out that is the cosmological map of the universe, and then with different tools like stones and bones and sometimes bay leaves and other, elements of the natural world, there would be a question or an inquiry, and they would toss on the divination rug, which is the magic carpet, and then you ride the magic carpet through the universe. So that's the history of the magic carpet. And if we look into a lot of older traditions and cultures, indigenous cultures and traditions, and if we go further out into the far reaches of the ancient peoples, pre-flood, divination is fundamental. It was actually a part of society. And so right now we're bringing it back. Why is this important? I'm gonna take a sip. Divination is important because in a time of uncertainty, like right now, we don't know how long this quarantine dynamic is going to happen, the coronation. We have no idea how long we'll be in the coronation. And we don't know what life is going to be like after this, given the circumstances on a variety of levels. And so divination helps to tap into something larger than ourselves and our current situation. And we start to tap into the life force of creation where all things manifest from and return to. So we start to move behind the veil. We open the curtain of the veil and we move into this whole realm of unseen where there are far more millions of unseen beings that are watching everything we're doing. And we start to build a relationship. And in that way, we start to build a communication with the divine, because I'm sure each and every one of you have already had relation to the divine in some fashion, consciously or unconsciously. And so that's why you're here. And so here's where we start to get to know a technology where we can be in communication, to be of service to planet Earth, to support this great time of transformation and transition. So it actually becomes a very useful, functional tool. Because at the end of the day, it's not about me or about you, it's about all of us, and it's about how we can be of service to all beings, human and non-human. And so this is a tool that can help us do that. It's also a tool to help us tap into this, open up this bridge between the subconscious, the conscious, and the superconscious. So we're learning about the world of corresponding relationships on multiple levels. And we start to learn about how to feel into, read into, and access, through the access of many different psychic abilities, the cosmological communication that is always happening. We're always in communication. You know, even astral travel, we're always astral traveling. It's just whether or not we're aware that we're doing that. Where do I look? Here? Oh, here. Am I looking in the wrong place? Sorry.
No, you're switch.
Oh, switching. Okay, cool.
We're figuring it out.
So, where did I left off? Okay, so we're always in some fashion astral traveling, right? And how do we stay grounded while we travel into the cosmoverse? People do it in a variety of ways. People are doing it with awareness or not. An example could be traveling in our dreams. That's probably the most common one. But sometimes you can tell when somebody's fully present or their heads are in the stars. They're probably astral traveling in some fashion, finding a relationship with these other planes that are existing, because we are multi-dimensional beings. You've heard that many times, and there's actually technology to that. We're multi-dimensional beings working in multiple planes. So divination, this particular technology here, is teaching us about multiple planes, how multiple timelines too, multiple planes of existence on this particular planet Earth, multiple planes of existence that this Earth is in relationship to, from the most subtle to the most dense, which is planet Earth, and then from the most dense to the most subtle. And so when we enter a field of divination in the context of this board, again, there are many different kinds of divination. I'm just talking about this one. We enter into a divination world. So as in the art of ritual, we start to learn the technologies to approach the sacred and be in relationship with the sacred. And then with Egyptian cosmology, we start to learn cosmological relationships of the different elements of the divine and the deities. With divination, we start to enter the mythological landscape of cosmological consciousness, where we are living in the cosmos all the time. And so the world becomes a living myth, where we see the signs and symbols everywhere we go all the time, and we start to open up more access to different psychic abilities. There are more than one. The common three that we'll speak to today are clairsentience, clairaudience, and clairvoyance. Those are the first common three. Clairvoyance, most people are familiar with. That's when you can see clairvoyant, you can see things. Classic ones are like auras. Clairaudience is when you start to hear things, like hear the voices of the ancestors, or hear the voice of Nefertiti, or hear the voice, you hear things. It's not just voices, but energy. Or like the moment that alarm went off, the moment I said that thing. And that indicates the relationship, either the support or like stop. You know, you start to get to understand, learn how to read the sounds that are interacting with your present moment experience. And then there's clairsentience, like truth bumps, where your hair stands up. So divination helps us learn how to tap into these three first psychic abilities that are a doorway into the 32 intelligences of the tree. So this is why divination is very useful. You're probably here because it's a Jedi training. This is the Jedi training, because this board starts to influence the rest of life. Like as an example for me, now look here. Okay, as an example for me, let's, the last two classes I was talking about this ritual where going behind the veil, a ritual going behind the veil. Is there a way where I can like look up where I can see myself more? Because I'm talking, look here.
No, look here, but this
Look here,
is
but
what
can
they're
that
saying.
tilt up a little bit more? Okay, sorry, we're just figuring. There you go, that's great, thank you. Okay, so one of the rituals I talked about yesterday and the day before, and the reason I'm bringing this up is because this is relevant to divination. The ritual I talked about was Nefertiti when she was teaching me the art of receiving instruction. She's still teaching me. Remember I shared, and I'll repeat again for those that weren't here yesterday and the day before. This ritual she taught is, I'm going to shorten it, not the whole thing, but she taught about how to step inside of her as my throne. And inside of her meant into the body of the cosmos. So I'm like stepping inside of her into the body of the cosmos. And she said, you have to veil yourself when you do that. So you actually go behind the veil. So you go behind the veil inside the body of Nefertiti, inside the body of the cosmos. And she was, from that place, she was showing me about a divination world that is not just this planet, but the world of the cosmos. So the reason why I bring this up is because I'm just going to invite you to consider this. So there's something on this real quick. There's like it says the host has spotlight or something. Okay, cool. So I'm going to speak about this and then we're going to go into the board. So in the world, what she taught me was that when you enter inside of her body as a throne, behind the veil, you then enter into this field, like the abyss or the great mystery, where information is moving through and around you from multiple places. So from here, she said, okay, now imagine in your bubble the cosmos behind you, all the cosmos behind you. And then now imagine in your bubble all the cosmos in front of you. Basically the net of stars, the body of Neith, who I talked about a second ago. Then imagine all the cosmos in this direction, all the cosmos in this direction, so on and so forth, in the 8 directions. So when I call in the 8 directions, you're also tapping into the body of the cosmos in the 8 directions, right? And then when I'm acknowledging the netherworld, it's the body of the cosmos in the netherworld. And when I'm acknowledging the star and the stars above, it's the body of the cosmos above. And then in the middle world, it's acknowledging the body of the cosmos in the middle world. So you're inside this vehicle that is the throne of Nefertiti, where all of the cosmos and all of time is moving in multiple directions everywhere. It's a world of corresponding relationships. And in that way, I was sharing with Tiffany today, when you start to do that work, just imagine where shooting stars are coming from what direction. And that helps indicate where information is coming. And that relates to the board, because sometimes information is coming from a past life. Sometimes information is coming from ancestral bloodlines. Sometimes information is coming from a future being. Sometimes information is coming from souls entering or souls exiting. We're learning about the subtle qualities of where information is coming from, that's coming through us as an offering. And that ends up becoming a world of symbols, signs, sigils, and seals, where that's why 2 weeks ago we started to get into sigils. We're starting to learn how to discern and craft symbols so that when we're in the divination world, the body of the cosmos, we are starting to tap into symbols and relationships, because this is what this is. Oftentimes, oracles and diviners speak in the form of riddles, like it's riddles of first, like, you know, the Holy Mother and the shell and the night sky and the body of the water. You know, sometimes they start that way, and then all of a sudden they start to refine, become very specific. So we're learning how to tap into these subtle images that pop up. Yesterday, I talked about the protecting our imagination, and this is a very big part of divination. Your imagination is one of the most powerful tools that you have as a creator in this world, because we are always creating. We're always creating something. We're never going backwards. We're only moving forward. And it's very important to, in my opinion, to remember that. I have to remind myself that regularly, that I'm always creating something, whether I'm being seen creating it or not. I'm always moving forward every day with every sunrise and every sunset and moonrise and every moonset. And so in the forward movement, what am I imagining and thinking, or what am I seeing or tapping into that is part of my daily life of being a creator? And so imagination is so crucial to divination, because imagination is that pure divine spark that comes through. It hasn't developed into a thought yet. It hasn't developed into a word, hasn't developed into a deed, a habit, a behavior, and or a destiny. It's that divine spark of the imaginal realm where it just is like pure and clear. And that place is so crucial to divination, because then that place, because from there, when things become thought, word, and deed, that's when our will is involved. Because you can feel the difference when it's like a ding, spark of imagination, and you can feel the difference when it's a thought that you're contemplating or meditating on or concentrating on that then becomes a word, that then becomes deed. And this is where we start to learn about vision. There was a question about vision. Sonia wanted me to talk about vision. So I'm gonna drink some time of vision. Imagination, which I spoke about, and now vision. So visions, I'm sure each and every one of you are visionaries. That's why you're here, you know, because that's why I'm talking about this. Or you come from a lineage of ancestors that are visionaries. One of the things that I've been taught through the Oracle and through a teacher is that not all visions that come through, and if any of them, belong to us. You know, one of my teachers says that they don't belong to us, and you hear different echoes of it. So it depends, you know, for me, I like the feeling of it doesn't belong to us. That feels good to me. And one of my teachers was talking about, well, Nefertiti was telling me that when a vision comes through, part of our work is to understand our divine work, our opus magnum. Our divine work is to discern if that vision is ours to do, or if it's a vision that we're tapping into that's a collective vision. Not all our visions are meant to manifest. In fact, if the amount of visions that I receive, if I was meant to manifest, it's just not possible for me to manifest them all at all. And it's not even my job to part them all. And because sometimes to this field of vision that might be related to the person that's in the room. You might be tapping into their vision. And so when we try to own a vision as ours and like hold it, we're almost like constricting its nature of unfoldment. And part of what I was taught is that when visions start to come through, it's like a graceful feeling of allowing its unfoldment. And at that point, you'll start to feel into whether or not it's your job to do. An example being this board came from a vision in 2004. Very clear vision, actually. It like mapped out a community layout. It like was very detailed, sigils, everything. And I was like, cool. Didn't think about it again. At once in a while in life, I would like see the vision of like, oh yeah, remember that board? That was such a cool idea. It took until 2017 for it to come alive. And it didn't come alive because I willfully was like, we need to make that vision board. It was like my dear friend Johnny Ray brought me a gift knowing about the board because I had told him, and he brought me this birthday gift of this board. It's so beautiful. We use it in ritual. And then from there, anyway, I realized, I asked him, can we make the divination board from the Oracle? I think it's time. And he said yes. And then within like seconds, he's like, draw it out. I drew it out in like 10 seconds, or 10 minutes. And then boom, he made it. And that is the example of how the board revealed itself through us. It wasn't like we spent like hours and months designing this and thinking it thoroughly through all the way through. Yes, I've been studying, I'm always studying these hermetic technologies and principles and indigenous technologies and principles this entire time, but it took 13 years for the vision to manifest effortlessly because I needed to do all that study so it could come through effortlessly. So it's learning about how visions can gracefully travel through you effortlessly. And why that's important is that applies to divination. Because when the information starts to come, it's learning how to be an effortless instrument for it to show itself to you. Because it's not about you, it's about being the instrument and the vessel. And in that way, grace and ease are a very important piece of this. If it becomes restrictive or hard, it's probably because some of one's own ego is involved. But if it's just like bing, 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 then it's like a clear channel of the information of the universe instructing and speaking through one. Now, it's different from channeling because in the context of this board, because oftentimes with channeling, you open up the field and you you allow a being to speak through you. That's more in the channeling concept. This one is entering into the body of the cosmos So you're floating inside of the mythological landscape of cosmological consciousness. And in that way, you're inside of the Akashic records. And Akashic records that are within and Akashic records that are without. And then it becomes this world of mythological consciousness and this world of corresponding relationships and this world of signs, symbols, and omens. And then all of a sudden, the information will start to come through and then it will teach you. Like for me, I learn through what's coming from my mouth. And that helps me know that it's not me. Like now I'm learning what I'm saying to you. I don't know if I've said all this before. I can't think of a time that I've said parts of this before, but not all of it. So I'm learning what's coming through my mouth together. Like I'm learning with everyone and that helps me know that it's coming through me. And so what it does is it helps us cultivate the art of observation, learning how to bear witness to ourselves as instruments. We've heard a lot of the concept of witness, being the witness, calling upon the witness. It's really learning how to see ourselves inside the mythological landscape that we've chosen and created as our reality. And in that, cultivating an energetic of awe and wonderment of the mythological landscape we've created in our lives. And in that, helping to refine and clarify what kind of mythological landscape we want to keep cultivating in our growth. And what mythological landscape wants to cultivate itself through us. And that is the primary key of divination. Okay, before I move on to the board, are there any questions?
So would you say that a vision has its own life?
Yes, so Roxy's question is a vision has its own life. Totally, it's life force energy. And then there are those, and then what I feel, at least in the context of the oracle and this board, again, this is the mythological life that I like to live in, so I'm here. I'm gonna share about it, share what it's teaching me. So what I like to do is help to bring a form for the visions that want to speak themselves through me, to if it's mine to do. And part of our learning here, my learning in life is, and this has been one of my great teachings, because I try to do everything. I have to remind myself, you can't do everything, stop, and learning what is actually mine to be of service in and what's not. And it's not like mine to own as me, it's mine to be of service in its manifestation, revealing itself on behalf of the benefit of all beings, human and non-human. It's my role is to do my best every day and tune my body, take care of my heart, do my ancestral healing, cleanse myself, go through the dark night of the soul, only way out is through, all of that, so I can continue the path of service on behalf of all beings, human and non-human. And learning about what your role is. Kelsey, any more questions? Yes.
Pamela has a question. Can you keep your Akashic records open while working with the boards, or advice not to open during your reading?
Now, this is where you get into, great question, Pamela. Pamela's a question, can you keep the Akashic records open while you're working with the boards, or is it best idea to not? If the key is staying grounded. If you are able to stay grounded, because ultimately you are entering the world of the Akashic records. So it's like keeping it open or entering inside of. Because the Akashic records are inside of you, and then you enter into the bubble of the divination house, the divination world. So if one is used to traveling into the Akashic records in a way that's like far away, then I would say no. But if it's not in the context of the board, but if you're experienced in staying grounded in the Akashic records, then, and there's a technology that you've been trained that you can still stay grounded while in the divination world, I'd say yes. Because ultimately you are opening up that place again of the Akashic records internally into the world of divination that is made up of information from the cosmos, which is in a lot of ways the Akashic records. So it's a great question, thank you.
And then Naz has a question. You mentioned multiple planes and multiple timelines. Can you please elaborate on the multiple timelines?
Yes. Okay, so multiple planes we talked about last week. I'll just briefly describe it for those that weren't here. So there are, and then we'll there are multiple planes and there are multiple timelines. So as a very simple example, the first prayer I did, right, where I like prayed in the 8 directions, and then I made a prayer for the lower world, the middle world, and the upper world. That was specific to planet Earth connected to timelines and relationships in all directions. In the context of the Egyptian cosmology stories, the particular lineage that I most relate to, there is a conversation around, there's written instruction and scrolls around there being 7 cosmic planes, and planet Earth is in the 7th cosmic plane. So think of planet Earth as the 7th, and then stretch further out, 6th, 5th, 4th, 3rd, 2nd, 1st. The cosmic planes stretch out pretty far. And we're going to go into that more in detail later, because that will take a whole class. And then inside of the 7th cosmic plane, which we are in the manifest world, there are 7 solar planes. So we start to get into the fractal line nature of the multiverse. And so we're learning how to work inside of these planes in this plane, and then connect to the other planes that are a part of the unfoldment of this plane. This is the most manifested plane of those other planes.
Does that mean it's the most dense?
The most dense, thank you, yeah. So this is where we get into more subtle, more dense, exactly. So now that consciousness applies to timelines. So timelines in oracular nature, it's like entering into a timeless state where all timelines exist. There's some very basic, I'll get to that in a second, but let's do this first. There's the past, right? There's past timelines of this life. There's past timelines of previous lives. There's past timelines of bloodline lives. So think of your bloodlines and your grandma, your grandpa, and your grandpa on both sides and their timelines of the past. There's past timelines of when your soul entered, and then there's a future timeline of when your soul is going to return home. So there's a variety of past timelines in multiple dimensions and planes. Then there's this timeline. In this timeline, we have the year of planet Earth as an example. We're working in this 7-day week and 365 days, blah, 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 planet Earth. Then we have the timeline of stones. How long have stones been here? These ancestor stones. How long have these standing ones, these trees been here? What kind of timeline and memory and relationship are they working in? Stones grow. They probably work in a lot slower timeline than we do. We don't know, we're learning. So now you start to think into timelines on planet Earth in terms of all of the elements of the natural world and their growth cycles. So there's a lot of, in that context, there's tons of timelines on planet Earth. And then you stretch out and you look into lunar timelines, the timelines of the moon. And then how the timeline of the moon influences the Earth. And then you stretch even further and you go into mercurial timelines. And how Mercury, its timeline is in relationship to the moon's timeline that's in relationship to the Earth. And so on and so forth. You get into larger timelines with planets. Planetary timelines. Then you get into really large timelines of astrological timeline cycles. You start to get into bigger cycles. Now we could go over the math, and that would be great, an awesome intellectual experience. But the point of this is that in terms of divination, is we're learning how to feel into dense timelines, more subtle timelines, moving in all directions. Backwards in the past, the multiple timelines of the past, in bloodlines, and also in our own life, in our previous lives before, the timelines in the future, timelines in the future of a variety. Like sometimes in the readings, there will be a future being, and it'll say 20 years in the future, this future being wants to have a conversation with you in the reading right now. Sometimes that happens. And then there'll be like timelines upward, downward, or we're thinking of like constellation timelines and of various realms, star timelines, below, deeper, thicker, more dense timelines inside all the way to the core, which probably has a central sun, I believe, and a middle earth. You know, I just had to say it. So I'm a big nerd of that. And then you have the timelines that are backwards and forwards and diagonally. So an example that I love that's a very planet Earth physical timeline, and this is all inside of the divination board. So this is learning about a divination house. A classic one, like you're at like an event. Let's say, I like to use the example of a festival because a festival is a very good example. The festival has multiple options in any direction. Wherever you go, you can experience something, right? And that applies to life every day. Now, some of the stories around our etheric body is that our most dense reaches out into like 50 feet in all directions. Now that depends on the mystery school tradition you're working in. You'll see different. So let's just imagine 50 feet for now. Your 50 feet moves in all directions. And so everyone in your 50-foot radius in any direction is connecting their etheric body with yours. And so you start to like mix your etheric bodies, which is why it's very important to pay attention to who you're living with and who you're mixing energies with all day, every day. Be very clear about that. It's important to note because you are sharing information. You are influencing each other literally through your etheric body, even if you don't see them that much, but you are in proximity. You're sharing energy, right? This is where you learn how to have containers and protection seals, and that's going to be another class. So in the festival, this is a very great practice. I've actually done it quite a bit. This is a very good practice to get to know timelines in a divination house and a divination world. You walk 20 steps in this direction. And notice as you're walking 20 steps in this directions, what you're feeling in all directions in your 50-foot radius, your etheric body. So we start to learn subtle energy. That's the key to divination, is tapping into subtle energy. So you go 50 feet in this direction and you feel everything, then come back to your anchor point. Then go, 10 feet in this direction. Feel everything in all directions in the 50-foot radius. Come back to your point. Do that in a few different places. And then you start to learn how to feel where your potential energy, what potentially could be mixing in that direction. And then that helps to see what it felt like when you went in your past direction. And then when you go to this side, that diagonal direction, what it feels like in the future and in the past. And that's a very simple, visceral practice where you start to like feel into the divination house. Ways to feel into the divination house is that, in terms of timelines, when you start to walk forward 10 feet and you're starting to feel into the future of that potential place in the festival, sounds, the alignments, what's playing itself out in the world, right, as you're walking in those 10 feet. Do they feel like bells ringing, or like you ran into that person, or you see that energy, or whatever? And that's information for that direction. Now you have will. You can change anything. Obviously, you're a human, you're a spirit in a body with will. And it's also just a great practice to feel into oracular consciousness and various realms of time in this physical realm. Did that answer your question, Max? That was the big one, long one on time. Did you have any other questions about that?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. Any more questions before we start moving to the board?
Yes, there's a lot of questions, but I don't know if you want to get into them now or if you want to.
Let's hear them and then we'll decide.
Okay, so can you speak more about the different mythological landscapes? Do you mean one informed by Egyptian or other cosmologies?
Great question. So the question was, can you talk more about mythological landscapes? And is this Egyptian informed or other ones? It's a great question. So in the context of the board, I'm going to start there and then go back in a variety of ways. Because we are in this board right here. In the context of the board, we are always living out a myth in some fashion. A very simple, classic, more obvious one that I'm sure everybody in this room has had some experience with is in relationship to the 22 tarot major arcana archetypes that are laid out here. There's 22 major arcana archetypes. Each and every one of us goes on the journey as the fool. We're all fools all the time, every day. And then we move through the archetypes like the magician, the high priestess, the empress, the emperor, the lovers, the hierophant, so on and so forth. So that is learning about the archetypal mythological landscape of the fool's journey going through these tarot archetypes. Now, that is one that's been laid out before you. Oftentimes in the mythological landscape of each and every one of our lives, it's learning to pay attention to not only what we're drawn to in terms of the myth that really touch our hearts, but also the energies that are showing themselves around us. Like an example I used yesterday with the Neteru, with Egyptian cosmology, was that oftentimes for those that are meant to enter the mythological landscape of ancient Egypt, usually the very first deities or Neteru, divinities that show themselves, tend to be Isis, Anubis, and Osiris. Those tend to be the first three images that all of a sudden just like are everywhere and they pop up. Some other ones too, but that's usually some of the doorways, and they're literally called doorways. So that is an example of what is showing itself around you mythologically, because that might, and consistently, because that might mean that there's some part of you that is drawing forward that mythological landscape into your myth. Now, many of us have interest and curiosities and just like are in awe and in wonderment with many different mythologies, and oftentimes that's related to our bloodlines. And all of us, you know, so many of us are mixed beings. You know, we're like a remix culture. We're made up of a lot of different lineages. There's very few of us that have a pure bloodline. So oftentimes the myths that one is drawn to, pretty often, it's rare that it's not that way, but pretty often it's something that's connected in our bloodline in some fashion. Sometimes, usually they're very, very, very distant ones. And then oftentimes the mythological archetypes that show themselves, whether it's like Shiva and Shakti, you know, that's a very common one right now, or like Mary Magdalene, Mother Mary, those are very common ones. What are some other common ones? Like I said, Isis, and you know, these, whatever's showing up around you is probably calling you to study and learn further. And the other mythological landscape that I do think is very important to start to look into is our own bloodlines. Each and every one of us, and there's a reason why Ancestry.com is really popular too, and like 23andMe, and like getting to know your DNA. And of course, there's a speculation of, I don't know if I want to give my DNA to this company. What are they doing with it? There is that side of things, as you wish. And also, getting to know your ancestral bloodlines and then looking into the mythical and mystical storylines in your bloodlines is the mythological landscape that you are carrying in your life as you're walking and moving, and also is oftentimes related to the mythological landscapes and cosmologies that you're drawn to and the ones that show up around you. And generally, correlations and correspondences start to appear. Now, I'm coming from an Egyptian one because that is my great study and my great teacher. And I also carry my other lineages with me in everything I do. And I found in my personal research of my own mythological landscape, not only have the Neteru and the deities been calling to teach me, but also as I started to research my bloodlines, I kept finding my way back to ancient Egypt. And that is probably likely going to happen in some tradition or culture. The other thing about the mythological landscape that I think is really important to tune into is, what is the story that you want to make of your life? Like, what is the story you are creating in your life? The world is made of stories. The world is made of the mythologies that we create. We are currently living in, right now, with this quarantine scenario, the coronation. My partner said once, we're living out a prayer that many of us have been saying in a lot of ways. We're like, we need to stop flying. We need to stop driving. We need to stop buying product from China. And like, we need to stop this. Like, how many times have we all said that or been in circles where we keep saying it? And so we're actually playing out the mythology that we've been envisioning and then the prophecies that have been spoken to simultaneously. So that's where the ancestral dream, the ancestral vision is connected to our vision of our lives. So this time in the coronation is very much about getting clear on the story we're telling ourselves, the story we're making, and the story that we are crafting for our path moving forward. And that's why mythological landscapes are really important, because this is you getting to engage your own imagination. Because remember in the beginning, I spoke about the power of your imagination. This is one's ability to engage your imagination, because what you imagine is what you can help manifest. And imagination in the purest form is so clear, and it's oftentimes connected to vision that's coming from somewhere, probably the nephew. I think so. I think most of my visions, especially when they're just coming like so fast and I don't have to sit and think about it or contemplate it, it's just like, and then I look at the mythological landscape that came through and I'm like, wow. And then I start to contemplate and concentrate, look into it. And then I feel into what part of that mythological landscape, what part of that vision I'm here to be of service in. So it's really co-creative. It's very, very co-creative. And this time is so much about our stories. Like, what are the stories we are telling ourselves? What are the stories that we are telling each other? And what are the stories we are crafting in our lives and together for this time, this great transition? So that was a long answer to that question. I hope. Questions? Yes, the Druids love. Any more questions before I move on?
There is one more.
Mhm.
It's related to the vision. What about Ouroboros and C? How did you come into the vision of this divination house and take it to something you wanted into fruition? How long did it take you from vision to where we are here and now?
It's a very, very good question. So I've been living inside this mythological landscape of the oracle, this crystal ball, since 2001. This crystal ball was given to three of us, Michael Manahan and Osiris Indria. And there are thousands of people that are part of this oracle crystal ball. In fact, they're all starting to come around as well. Darren is another one. Darren's now working on the site. I may be going on and on. So we started working with this crystal ball and learning how to receive information and vision, and how to give information and give ideas to the crystal, like a computer. If you think about our computers have crystals in them, right? So that same technology applies to crystals, in my opinion, and what I've studied and what I believe. Bless you. Thank you. So we started learning how to receive instruction and to give ideas to the crystal ball. And then from there, witnessing how the crystal ball informs what wants to be manifested through us being vessels. So in that dynamic, the oracle has started to lead a life, at least for me, where everything is her vision coming through me. Whatever it is, whether it's Ouroboros, that was a lineage passed from my teacher, William J. Kiesel, who was there. He was my teacher before the oracle crystal ball came into my life. So the oracle informed me to inquire about carrying his lineage forward to this board here, to the Academy of Oracle Arts, to the Compass with Lightning Living Village Culture, the Compass at Lightning in a Bottle. The oracle is weaving the web of life that I'm currently in service to. So it takes whatever time it needs to. And I'm in no rush, and I'm not willfully pushing anything forward. If anything, I'm just like trying to keep up with what she is moving forward. So the timelines are sometimes longer. Like this took 14 years to be ready to be manifested, but it took 10 minutes to draw. And then it took a day to put in CAD or whatever program to use. And then it took an afternoon for it to be printed. And since then, it's been taking consistent divination classes and divination readings to build the divination community to support and to help this time of transition. So really that's a very powerful question that is actually a timeless question, because it is actually moving in a variety of different times. Now, in terms of like I need to plant my garden and turn the soil so that I can plant these seeds and there's enough time for the seeds to grow so that there's actually food at this, in the summer. That's a timeline that is very specific to manifesting for food. You wouldn't necessarily, that has a very specific timeline in relation to the weather and the cosmos. However, adaptability with the changing of the seasons, because there's a letting go, because we don't know as the climate's changing too. So that as an example of creating a structure when a vision comes with adaptability to the changing nature. So like sometimes when a vision comes, like we made the first template for this in 2004, laid the structure, let it go, and then witnessed how it adapted itself and came forth in 2017. So much about divination in this way, in this context of this board, is building a relationship with the unseen and making sure they're benevolent ones and being really clear about the information that's coming through you. Now, sometimes when information's coming through, it's the most important thing I feel is to get to know, discern if it's one's ego or it's clear. Because I'm sure many of us can feel when somebody comes like, oh my God, like I had this download and like this is what I'm being told right now and like this is what needs to happen. That's probably got some ego in it, more times often than not. Because one is coming forward with, we have to do this, I received this vision. Where it's like, well, maybe you received the vision, but like, do I have to do it? Like, why? It's like, because then that's one inserting their will upon what needs to happen. And that's a really important key to know if a vision's coming through you and you feel this like need to be seen in the vision coming through you. Or need to make it happen, like because it came now. And that oftentimes is a way to like monitor oneself in the reality of, is it like pure or is it filled with dynamics of needing to have a role or needing to be seen or wanting to be a leader or like whatever. Where oftentimes if a vision is manifesting through you, it has a feeling of effortlessness and it doesn't matter if anybody sees it or not. Like the board coming through, it wasn't like the plan, it was never a plan to share the board this way. I was just like, cool, now there's a board, now I can like figure out, I can work with the oracle now, It was just more like a way that I can interact with the oracle in the beauty of the world that's manifesting itself through me. But then the oracle started to present itself to the world and there started to become interest, and all of a sudden like Sonia and Roxy are like, we're putting this online, and then it just started happening. And it's like happening through the people effortlessly and gracefully. And that's a key to tell the difference, because it's very, we're in this time too as like this desire to connect to the sacred, which is so great, and to feel like the woven web that we're a part of, and the web of life that is human and non-human, which is really good. We're getting to the habit of hearing like, I received a download, I received an upload kind of a thing. And which is beautiful and really good, but it's like, well, where did you receive it? And is it relevant to now? And does it need to be told right now? And this is where we get into the powers of the Sphinx, like the will to know, to will, to dare, and to keep silent. And it's just, divination is also in the context of this thread I'm on, is like tapping into how the world is communicating to you to support oneself in being of service in this time, this great time of turning, and seeing how the world is in communication and seeing how one is in communication with the world. It's not just about relationships between humans. When I say it's all the web of relations, all of our relations, it's not just human. The unseen web of relations of even the sound of the honking horn at that moment that one said that thing and who was in the room. It's the web of relations of the communication of the world revealing itself through you and to you. And then also one learning how to be a clear vessel moving through the divination world. Because when we open up this divination consciousness, we start to tune into the as above, that as within, so without, that which is above is that which is below. When the two become one, then we enter the kingdom and queendom of heaven. We enter into this realization of the holographic universe. And that is really the core of what divination is about, like becoming conscious in the holographic universe. So there's a thread I have traveled in. Yes.
A little bit on that, just like, what is that delicate balance between striving and working hard toward the visions that we're being given, or like how do we play that dance? Because sometimes it feels like, oh, this is for me to do, but even like Sonia saying like, wow, I'm having to learn a lot of things I've never done before in order to fulfill what I do feel like is for us to do. How do you figure out that balance
between like the struggle to like, well, the first key, the question that Ruby had is like, how do you, and correct me if I'm wrong, but like, how do you balance the struggle and the hard work when you know that this is yours to do and the journey it takes to get to that place in it? Does that feel like a good, okay. So the first thing to note is like, why is it a struggle? You know, like, does it have to be a struggle? And the second note is like, what's the rush? Like, where are we actually trying to get? You know, obviously, you know, we're trained in this world, which is good, you know, to have timelines and structures and like plans and visions for when we want to like release this thing and do that thing. Like, you know, we have a plan for when we're starting the Oracle Arts Academy, like the Oracle Arts Apprenticeship, and we have this date.
Oracle has her own plan.
But Oracle has her own plan. So we're like, I guess we have to move it back because the coronation needs to happen right now, you know? So it's like, do we have to struggle in the experience? Oftentimes, struggle is more connected to our own stuff that we want to work through, so that it doesn't have to be a struggle. Because the question is like, what are we working for and towards? So it's an interesting dynamic, because I definitely am a quote hard worker. Like, my partner, Sweetie's always like, babe, you need to sleep. I'm like, babe, I slept. He's like, you only slept 6 hours. And, you know, sometimes that can lead to obviously exhaustion, and then I don't get it, then I get grumpy, and he's the one that manages my grumpiness and blah, blah, blah. But sometimes it's like, when it's learning about like when an energy's flowing through, and learning when we have to have a container on the energy, and learning when we are trying to willfully make the energy do something that's not meant to do. And that's where the tapping into and learning how to build a relationship with the divinities is super key, because then you're building a relationship with your support network that is also non-human. Like, for instance, as an example, particularly with 3 of you that are here in this room, Roxanne, Sonia, and Ruby, who have been the reason why this is online. Just want to say my gratitude. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I've asked the Oracle many times, my Nefertiti on the other side, I'm like, okay, I'm down, like, if this is what you want to do, but like, can you please bring the dream team in? Because I cannot do, like, no, I need some help in the physical realm. Like, I feel the help in the interdimensional realms, but I like, need help in this physical realm. So could you please bring the dream team together? Here you are. And so when you get to this point, and when you know, like, for instance, you're meant to be like offering your music, your healing music to the world, like, for sure. Ruby Chase here as an example, look her up. She's an amazing musician and singer and teaching. Thank you. I'm about to take a class. Check out her classes. So the path for you, Ruby, where like, you know, you're meant to be a singer, and the time of the musical world where it's like changing, the face of the music industry is changing, and the current structures that have been designed in the musical industry that like are just now starting to acknowledge POC and give awards to the POC, and B, are mostly run by men, where women like oftentimes have to work harder. It's like also the dynamic of that, and then also like tapping into how to call upon your divinities that you know who they are, get to know who they are, to support you in being a clear conduit for the energy to move through you in right timing and right alignment. and then calling upon, okay, like they tell you, okay, you're meant to bring this song, and you're like, okay, well, I need like this microphone, I need this studio. Like, get clear on what your needs are to fulfill that purpose, that moment of that purpose in the house of divination, which is where multiple timelines are working in all directions. And you're getting clear on what divinities you're working with in reverence, the benevolent ones and your ancestors. And then all of a sudden, the work will start to happen. It's almost like that I think the Taoist, I don't know it by heart, but it's like the art of doing nothing and everything gets done. Where all of a sudden it just starts to do itself through the support of your human and non-human relationships. And then that's obviously connected to our passions, which is ultimately connected to our dharmic path, and it starts to like ding, 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 ding. And this is where the technology of prayer is very important. And we're going to talk more about technology of prayer next week. So that answer your question?
Yeah, so good. Thanks.
Awesome. Yeah.
There's so many questions coming in.
Okay.
I feel like today's just a Q&A.
I think this is
you called it in.
Oh yeah, Sonya did call
You're
it
on a
today.
roll,
Here we
so.
are. Okay.
That's what got divine.
That's what got defined by Sonya. From the Oracle. From
From the Oracle.
So that's another thing right now too. I just want to speak before more questions come. When the Oracle draws people to her, like all of you in this room, you'll start to have ideas that can benefit everybody. So like when the visions or ideas come through that are solely for oneself, that's for oneself. But when you start to have visions and ideas that are benefiting everybody, that's probably an indication that that's the Oracle and Nefertiti working through you, because it's in behalf of all beings, human, non-human. It's not just human. And that's another key, because oftentimes we have these like visions of like for humanity, like these massive visions for humanity. Well, what about like the trees, and what about like all of the other elements of the physical world and of not the non-physical world? Because sometimes the unseen are like, okay, cool, you guys are on planet Earth, but like we helped you get there, and you're not including us in your vision and your prayer. Like there's more beings in the unseen too, and they want to be included. Again, be clear on who you're working with. Make sure they're benevolent. I'm going to say that like 10,000 times. And then your ancestors, you're here because of our dream. Are we not going to be included in your vision too? So part of it is like learning about when we say on behalf of all beings, like what are we talking about? And that's an indication when visions are coming through you or ideas are coming through you. If it's like self-serving for your life, is it serving your family? Is it serving your community? Is it serving humanity? Is the vision coming through that actually is thinking on multiple dimensional levels that include all of those things? Oftentimes, if it's multiple dimensional levels, that is a clear sign that it's the Oracle, it's Nefertiti, or a divinity. Doesn't mean the other ones aren't important, because we definitely need to pray for our lives. We definitely need to pray for our family. We definitely need to pray for our species. We definitely need to pray for the whales. I mean, it goes on and on and on. But to help to discern the differences. Okay.
Well, that's perfect, because Amy actually says, do you have any tips on developing discernment for visions, messages, energies that come through a channel? I opened one through plant medicine, and I'm learning how to work with it, and understanding the messages coming through has been a challenge, especially without a teacher or a guide as it's been developing, specifically on how to navigate literal interpretations versus metaphor.
Okay. The first question I have for you, Amy, and this is a big one, and this is coming from somebody, I'm like psychedelic culture has been a huge teacher for me. I just want to be very clear about that. And I also work with a particular plant medicine as my teacher. One thing that's really important, as so many of us are expanding and going into interdimensional realms with psychedelics and or plant medicines, is obviously number one, to stay grounded. And every plant medicine and psychedelic has different teaching, right? They're all unique. But one thing that came for me that was that one of my teachers, Hector Gomez, said to me, and I just love Hector. Oh, bless you, Hector Gomez, and Celia and your family, Julie and everybody. Just love you guys so much. Hector sat me down one time. He's like, I know about you, Isis. I'm like, what do you know? And he's like, you like to sit with the Wachuma. the peyote and ayahuasca, and he's like all the different medicines that I was sitting with. I don't even know how he knew because I didn't even tell him. And he was like, and but Isis, it's a lot of teachers. Like, are you learning from any of them? Because you're sitting with all of them. It's good to have a commitment with the teacher and just stick with it. And then you start to understand the technology of that medicine, what that medicine is teaching you. And if you're experimenting and what he was saying, and I'm going further because I contemplated that for a long time. Because I was like, do you mean I have to like choose between them? They're all my teeth, blah, blah, blah. I started going into my mind about it. And then I realized that like the teaching he was offering me at that moment that is still teaching me, it's a teaching that keeps teaching. That's another thing. That's really take note of teachings that keep teaching you. Really note that. He started teaching me about a relationship that I was making with this medicine. And he was like, the power of commitment is when you stay committed to the teaching that is coming with this medicine and learning about what the medicine is teaching you and how the medicine is tending to you. If it's mixed with a lot of different things, it's hard to discern what's what. And so it helps with discerning. It helps, like when we pick a path or choose a path or a tradition or a medicine, we stay with it. Those of us that are remix culture, sometimes it's hard to do that. Like, I'm definitely one of them. I have definitely have traveled and many different medicines at the same time in many different ways for long periods of time, But I found that made it hard for me to discern. And so when I made a commitment, even for a time frame, to either stick with the teacher or stick with the medicine, then it helped me understand what the medicine is trying to teach me and helped me discern what the symbols are, what the signs are, what's consistent, what is mine to do, what is just looking into the landscape of humanity or looking into the landscape of interdimensionality. When we make a commitment, we stick with something, then we can actually learn the qualities we can start to discern between them. Another powerful key for discernment is the ritual we started with when you go behind the veil and you tap into, and you're part of the world. Is that Amy Williams?
Yeah.
Okay, so Amy, we're going to do a lot of this in the Oracle Arts because I know you're part of it. So we're going to do a lot of work on this. But another one of the discernment qualities is when you're inside the divination house, inside the body of Nefertiti, and you start to feel, remember I said in the beginning, cosmological energy in all directions, and you're veiled, there's nobody there, it's just you and yourself in the cosmos. It's not, you didn't take a medicine, it's just you. Like, if you were going to take one, I would suggest Blue Lotus, to anoint yourself with Blue Lotus, so that can help. And then from that place, start to feel in where information's coming, where thoughts are coming from, where ideas are coming from, where visions are coming from, where your imagination is coming from. And in that way, you can start to discern more. It's like a time to sit with yourself. And the way to do that is continuing the process of emptying oneself. Like you keep emptying, you keep emptying, keep emptying. And in the art of emptying, then you go into the realm of noticing. And that will start to help with discernment. And then again, if information or visions are coming, they're on behalf of all beings. And it's not about you willfully needing to make it quick and you had this idea, you're leading it. It's like the information starts to show on behalf of all beings again and again and again. That's probably an indication. Oftentimes if it's a vision where it's like, 1, you feel like it's yours, 1, you're the Messiah, 2, you're the Messiah, 3, you got the idea, you've got the concept that is the one. Obviously, those are examples of, egos involved. Or if it's in your own needs are being involved and being seen, oftentimes the Messiah complex is a very common complex, especially as we're in this time of the rainbow children and a lot of us are receiving visions. Care around whether you're having a Messiah complex or not. And then also, if a vision's coming through or a download or an upload and you feel like you gotta tell the people, I need to tell the people, whether it's through Instagram or your friends or whatever, that might be an indication that your ego's involved. So it's just okay, whoa, I need to tell the people. Okay, I'm gonna sit here for a minute. I'm just gonna empty myself and start the art of discernment. Because probably some of that vision is partially coming from somewhere else and some of it's coming from yours. So you start to really, it's take a minute, take a moment. And I have to tell myself this all the time, so it's us being alive and human. So there's an answer to that question. Were there any more questions?
Yes. Can you explain the difference between download versus upload
Yeah,
from Missy?
from Missy. I can share with you what the oracles taught me about it. Again, part of what we're doing here is learning how to be our own oracles. What I've learned about downloads and uploads is downloads oftentimes, I mean, think of it in direction. Down, coming in. Downloads are probably connected to, first off, star nation relationships, or like information from the cosmos outside of this earthly plane. Uploads are probably coming from in the first dimension, from below, and they're this way. Now remember though, it's a cycle, it's eternal cycle. So, you have like the primordial waters, the primordial world at the top, and there is no technical top. You have the primordial worlds that we think of as the top, where we get the downloads from, and then we have the nether world, the duat, in the middle of the world, we think is below, but it's just one big cycle. Right, and this is where we start to get into cosmic planes. There is no like top or bottom, actually, in the world of the abyss. It's just a cycle. So, however, in the realm of like subtle to dense and dense to subtle, in that context of that, downloads would come from the more subtle realms in, and uploads would come from the more denser realms coming up. But it doesn't mean one's bad or worse, because inside the denser realms is a connection to the subtle realms. So it's one big circle and cycle. But I like to feel into downloads coming from like this, and then I start to feel into perhaps what immediate deities or divinities pop up. And then when I think of uploads coming from this way, I think of the elemental kingdom and like what is kind of uploading in me from the elemental world in this physical plane. Remembering though that they're connected. Any more questions?
And then what are your thoughts on discussing the process of creating a right on other people?
Creating a right on other people. Is that the exact words? What's the
Creating
exact
a
word?
right to other people.
A right to other people. A right to offer people? Like what exactly is the question?
You could come off mute too, whoever it is.
Missy, do you want to come off of mute and ask your question?
May need to turn on.
Now, in terms of creating a right,
Okay.
that's
That's what we're going over in the apprenticeship.
yeah, we are going to go over, and Missy, we are figuring out a way with you in the apprenticeship, by the way, just so you know. Okay, so
Thank you.
yeah, we've been talking about it. So in terms of creating rights, and there's lots of like rite of passages, there's a lot of different kinds of rights. And the first thing with creating a right is getting to know what kind of right it is. Like what is its function, what is it for? Is it a right to a dedication right, where they are going to dedicate themselves in the path of service? Is it an initiation right? And if it is, an initiation into what? Like, is it a right to acknowledge that, one received their moon? Is it a right into manhood? And what part of manhood? Like the first thing about right is to get very clear on what the right is, because that level of intricacy and detail is super, super important. And then what is the context and the reasoning for the right being brought forward at this time, for what purpose? And how is this right ultimately of service to one's life and benefit for their life moving forward, and thus benefiting their life moving forward, that's benefiting all of their relationships moving forward? There's a delicacy in creating a right. And now you, Misty, as an example, it's clear you're an oracle, right? So in terms of a right revealing itself through you, I feel like is what your question is. Like how to tap into a right revealing itself through you. So one of the ways you can do that is that veil right, which I'm going to write it down anyways, because a few people are asking about it. So that's going to be part of it. And you're going to learn this in the Oracle Arts Apprenticeship. You're going to learn how to make a book of rights. So, and how rights work and how rights can be offered and in what context. Now, one of the things that's very important is in terms of doing a right for someone, always the same, like when writing a business plan, who, what, when, where, why, and how, apply those same words, that same understanding and deepening to the right, so that you're fully clear on what you're doing and why it's being done and where it's coming from and what it's for. Like, for instance, every right that Nefertiti teaches me, I like want to know why, what for, like what's this, how is this of use at this time, like what is it setting in motion, and also too in the terms of initiation, is it because this person is calling forth their own self-initiation for their lives and I'm here to support that, whether it's like receiving their moon cycle or, you know, to support them in this next phase of their life. Like the clarity of the right is of utmost importance, because that becomes a memory. You're basically opening up a memory palace with you and your people or your person. And that memory palace, which is the right, is going to be placed one returns to for a remembrance, awareness, and path moving forward. You also too, when offering a right, want it to be incredible. You know, like where it's like so deep and profound. There are many times where in my path, and I'm probably still learning that myself, where like certain rights that have been passed, oh, I needed to like make sure to do that thing and do that thing over here and do this thing over here, like just to like tighten that up a little bit more. Which is why what we're doing is we're teaching about the technology of the tree, so you have a very clear platform to then offer these rituals and these rites in a good way. We can get into a talk on rites. That one will definitely be its own class. It's definitely going to be a big part of the Oracle Arts Apprenticeship. So we'll have to continue that because it's just a little bit beginning. Any other questions before we have 5 more minutes? Well, I guess we keep going. Any more questions?
Yeah, Pamela has one, but I don't know if she wants to ask you for her divination reading or if we should go over it now. Pamela, what do you think?
What's the question?
Do you have any ideas to go deeper with your vision? I have a lot of astral visions before going asleep at night. Sometimes I go to a place, sometimes I can't remember. I start to ask my ancestors, masters, angels, and saints to help me remember before I go to sleep at night, sort of a prayer to them. My dreams have been deep during this time of the virus, and I feel like I can go deeper. Anything I should do or use?
Yeah, so Pamela's asking about the dream time. And a lot of dreams and visions, I'm going to try to summarize this, hope this is accurate. That a lot of dreams and visions are coming through in the dream time, and her inquiry is like, how can I go deeper into learning more, receiving more, understanding more? Okay, so if one wants to go into the dream time, the astral realm, which is connected to divination work, obviously, because one thing that's going to happen that happens to me all the time is that the divination board will start to teach me in my dreams through the voices of others in a divination reading, like through the interacting with it. All of a sudden, like the board will teach me in a lot of different ways, in a lot of different timelines. So I feel like that's related to your question. If you want to wake up in the dream, first I'm going to refer to my dear friend Jennifer Dumpert. She's an amazing lucid dreamer. She just came out with a book, like look her up. Name again. Jennifer Dumpert. And she just released a book about dreaming. I would like highly recommend looking into her. She's awesome. We are going to have, the plan is to have her teach in school. So we're working on it. Some basic things before you go to sleep if you're going to wake up in the dream. One, like a dreaming herb by your bed. Mugwort's a great one. I have mugwort by my bed.
Spell her last name?
Jennifer Dumpert, Dumpert, Dumpert. Mugwort, when I want to wake up in the dream or remember my dreams in the morning, I smell mugwort before I go to bed. I have it right at my crown right now because similar to you, Pamela, I know I have some things that I learned in my dreams. Like for instance, the other day, I just have to tell this real quick. I like sat up.
This is the story I was going to tell you.
I haven't heard of this one.
I sat up in the middle of the night in bed and my eyes were fully closed and I started teaching in a Zoom call. And I was like talking and I was like fully in it. And my sweetie, Ricky, he's like, babe, what are you doing? And I was like, babe, I'm teaching, I'm in a Zoom class right now. And I just kept going.
Oh my God.
And then he had to like nudge me. He's like, babe, you're sleeping. And I was like, it took me a minute to like wake up and realize what had happened. And so then in that moment, I wanted to remember what was being shared in the Zoom,
Yeah.
because I was like, oh, dang, you know. But at that moment I did. So then I brought mugwort to bed. I was like, I'm bringing mugwort. Let's do this. So like mugwort is a key. Look up dreaming herbs, and if you're in quarantine, the coronation, I'm sure you can find a place to get something. Blue lotus is another one. Blue lotus tea before you go to bed. Blue lotus anointing oil. Maz and Laura from House of Origins, they have a dream medicine, a dream tincture. We can get you that too. They can get you that. House of Origins, look them up. And you can take a medicine or an herb to support you in going to the dream world. And then also when you were in the dream world, like some really basic things that have been very helpful for me. Before I go to bed, I make an altar, or I have a specific altar. I know what altar I'm working with, and I imagine the altar, and then I do my best to, I tell myself in the dream time, I'm going to wake up at this altar in the dream time. And then I just train my consciousness to find myself at that altar in the dream time as a way to wake me up in the dream. Or like some classic ones are like, look for your hands. You know, you wake up in the dream, you before you go to bed, you go like this and start to get to know your hand right before you go to bed. Or your clock. You can like have a clock. You look for a clock in the dream. That's if you want to wake up in the dream time. There are many times where I've done tons of work in the dream time. Probably you, Pamela, and probably everyone that's still on this call feels like they're doing work in the dream time. And they want to figure out how to be of service in that place, because that's in a realm before manifestation, right? So those are some 3 classic ways you can do it. I would look up Jennifer Dumford for more. And then now the classic one, if you want to remember your dream, is obviously first thing, write it down. That's like a very first classic one. So it's like setting an intention to go into the dream world, to learn more, to deepen, and then waking up, writing it down immediately, whatever symbols you have, or recording. Now, something that has been very common for some people, maybe not millennials, but those of us that are not millennials, is if your phone is not on airplane mode, it can disturb the dream time, like remembering dreams. So something that can be very useful is to turn off airplane mode so that you're not, the information
Turn
from the
on
web,
airplane
turn on, thank you, turn on airplane mode. So the energy from the web is not influencing your dream world. And that's a very like powerful thing that at least I need to do in order to like remember stuff. And then also, there have been, 2 things. Okay, so one of the things that when I was studying in High Priestess training with Lori Goodnison, I asked her if she would take me on as an apprentice. And she said, I'm only going to teach you in my dreams. And I was like, okay. She's like, yeah, so just find me in the dream and I'll teach you there. And then I would like, after, she'd come in my dream and she would say first, she said to me, I'm going to teach you about the elements of my dream. That's what we're in your dream. That's how we're starting. And so then when that would happen, I'd go to bed and I'd be like, okay, I'm going to meet Lori in the dream time and we're going to study the elements. So I'd tell myself that. Sure enough, it was happening. And I'd always like try to like call her, like text her and tell her like what I taught. And she'd be like, no, like it's not, please do not tell me what you're learning from me in the dream time. And that confused me. And I was like, well, why? Like if I'm apprenticing under you, and like, how come I can't tell you? And the teaching was, well, there's a lot of teachings in that, but one of them is that she became my anchor to learn from the unseen, learn behind the veil in the dream world. She became my anchor to it. Me establishing her as a teacher to teach me was what brought me the teachings. And it wasn't about me telling her. It was about me going into the realm where I can learn and study in the dream time. So that's another thing you can do. And then in the establishment that I had with her was that so I could look to her because I was also studying with her in the mystery school. We knew that she was holding that space for me to learn from her in the dream time. But it wasn't meant to be talked about here. And then what that did is that set forth this timeline for me to learn how to go into the dream with an intention to study more. So there's a long-winded answer to that.
So cool.
Are there any more questions? Oh, one more thing about that too. Sorry, one more thing about that too.
2:30 already.
Yeah, and I'm open to a few more questions for closing. But I'll say something and then I'm gonna close and then or whatever. So another thing about the dream thing too. There's what's gonna happen, I find, or what happens to me. I don't know what's gonna happen for each and everybody, but what happens to me is that there starts to become a point where like, are you dreaming or are you awake or asleep, right? I mean, we've all heard this. Are we dreaming awake? Are we asleep? Are we in a dream? Like blah, blah, blah. But what starts to happen is that there's a threshold. And this is related to divination. There's a threshold, like this one dream when I was doing all this work, particularly around this, where, and this is something that you can do. This is related to the altar, so I use this as an example. Where like, I went to this place called Prophecy Rock with my friend Pan, literally. We were at Prophecy Rock, and then we like climbed through, and we were sitting on Prophecy Rock, and I was like, Pan, tell me a story. This is in this realm. And he starts to tell me a story. And then he's telling me a story, and then I went into the dream time, and I found myself at Prophecy Rock with Pan. And I said, in the dream world, at Prophecy Rock with Pan. I was like, Pan, tell me a story. And so then Pan started telling me a story at Prophecy Rock in the dream realm. And then I found myself in the between and learning how to hear the story from Pan in the dream world and in the physical realm on Prophecy Rock. And that was the way that I was starting to get to know how to learn and study and weave the dream world and the physical world. So that's an actual practice you can do with someone. Like when you feel like you're kind of like starting to like get tired, you can choose a location like where you're sitting and ask someone to start to tell you a story where you are. And then as you're falling asleep, clarify that you're going to be in the same place, and then tell yourself to ask the same person to tell you a story in that place. And then you'll probably start to find yourself in between and be able to hear from both. I wasn't able to hear the story from both places, but I was able to realize I was in both places, which in and of itself is a teaching. Okay, so before I open up to a few more questions, I just want to say contributions are lovingly welcomed. Thank you so much for those that keep contributing. I'm very grateful, and it keeps helping. So I just want to say that it's lovingly welcomed.
We're gonna put the Venmo in the chat.
And then we're gonna put the Venmo in the chat. And next week, we are gonna do the same thing every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Art of Ritual on Tuesday, Egyptian Cosmology Wednesday, Divination on Thursday. Now, the question I had is like, are you gonna teach the same thing every week? And what are you gonna teach if it's not? So the reason why I keep the title super vague, where it just says Art of Ritual, Egyptian Cosmology, Divination, is because the ancestors that come into the room influence what teaching gets shared. And then that influences what teaching is woven from the oracle, from the divinate, from Nefertiti. So I can propose a like direction and a concept. Like my proposition is next week at the Art of Ritual to the gods, can we discuss the 7 planets and their colors and their attributions? So that's like the plan, but I don't know if that's what's gonna happen. Like I had a fully different idea of what was gonna go on today. So that's why I keep it pretty vague. If there are certain things that you do want, if your ancestors or you specifically do want to be talked about more in depth, like you can also contact me through Instagram or contact us and suggest them, like Linsun did, and that will be helpful. Like, so now we're gonna talk about Tahuti and Heteru next week. Please help me remember we're starting with Tahuti and Heteru.
Yeah.
And in Neteru willing, that's the plan. And then we'll just see what happens. So I just want to clarify that. And then again, Thank you
Also,
so much. This has been
One
so
more
fun.
announcement, if you are interested in doing Marza Millers,
Oh, yeah.
who is a local elder in our community, who's an incredible teacher, she has a different Zoom link meeting, so please make sure you pre-register, which you can do on the Ouroboros Instagram page in the bio link, or the livingvillageculture.com/Ouroboros, and you can register to for that class as well. An amazing class. It's also contribution based.
We put
Mar-
the Instagram.
Marza, and she's gonna write that on Instagram. Marza Millar is one of my teachers, and she is actually the first the Oracle fireplace was passed to her, and then she passed to me. So she's a very she's important. She's one of my elders and my teachers. I highly recommend taking class from her. She teaches in a different way. She teaches like circular. So sometimes she goes on I kind of did that today. She goes on like tangents, and sometimes it doesn't it seemingly doesn't make sense where she's going, but then it always weaves back around. So I highly recommend taking her classes. She's starting to teach in the Oracle Arts Academy more and more now. Okay, so before I do a closing prayer, are there any more questions? I'm open up for a couple more. This has been a question Q&A day.
Yay, we called it.
Any more questions before I do closing
How do
prayer?
the hands and the clock work?
Before you go to bed. Before you go to bed, or this is how I've been taught. I'm sure there are more ways. Jennifer Dunford again. But the way that I've been taught is I just look at my hands and then get a real clear look at your hands. And then before you go to bed, do it. And then tell yourself that you're going to find your hands in the dream time as you're going to sleep. Same thing with the clock. And then in the morning when you wake up, look at your hands too. So you're starting to build a relationship with your hands in the in-between realm, right before you go to bed and right when you wake up. And then you're likely going to be able to find it in the dream time.
And if you find your hands in the dream time.
Then you're awake in the dream. And then you can start walking around and noticing you're awake in the dream.
Okay.
That's going to help you wake up in the dream.
Great.
It's super fun and cool and wild. Wild.
Oh.
Like my ex-partner, Lucas, he can decide to use something, and he'll go into the dream time and freaking swim with whales, fly with whales. He can do anything in the dream time. He is so freaking on it in the dream time.
Whoa, that's so cool.
I know. So it's really waking up in the dream is so that you can actually study in the dream time. And that's what my high priestess teacher was teaching me about, Lori, was you can utilize the dream time to be a place to study, which is awesome.
Great.
Any more questions?
27.
Yes. Missy has a question. If my question is to define the details of the divination reading, should I contact Isis or can I open it up here?
Define the details of what? What do you mean?
Her divination
The
reading that you
divination
did.
reading.
Oh,
That's probably more personal.
That's Do you want to hit up Isis?
yeah, hit me up. We'll chat more about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alexandrina does have a question, but I feel like it might be a useful question when we go into Egyptian cosmology, which is, do you have an experience using writing as a way to connect with the Neteru?
For sure, Alexandrina. The question is writing, have I experienced writing as a way to connect with the Neteru? I mean, automatic writing is a powerful tool. One of the things I want Eve to do a class on love letters to the holy. But one of the things you can do is write a letter. Write a letter to the Neteru and just see what happens through you. And you can choose, this is the awesome thing about writing too, is you can determine how the letter works. You can either write a love letter to the Neteru or invite the Neteru to write to you. The Neteru can write to you through you.
Whoa. Yeah, my future self has
Yeah.
been doing that since the divination reading.
Sure. I can only imagine. I want to hear more. So you can ask the Neteru to write a letter through you. It can be to you or to someone or to humanity. You can go both ways. So automatic writing is super powerful. Actually, there's a whole incredible dynamic around automatic binary codes, where there's been some actual documented situations where people have had full automatic binary code writings, and then they to like the crop circles and the binary codes of the crop circles to help decipher what the crop circles are saying. So automatic writing, and that is like a super powerful. I'm so glad you asked that. It's a really powerful
You
way.
mean
to connect.
automatic writing is just like free flow?
Free flow.
Yeah.
But then you can direct. There's automatic writing where you're free flow, and then you can also like for instance have like Sekhmet, Sekhmet's the one, and like make an offering to her, anoint her, say thank you to her, and ask her to write through you.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden like. And write through you to you, or like write through you to something, like, because also it's like helping to like deepening the question for a purpose can sometimes make it flow more.
Yeah.
It just depends. Okay, other questions? I know I should do that. I haven't done that in a long time. Any other questions?
Hendrik
Mhm.
has a question. What is the most potent protection ritual from any forces not having your best interest in mind one can do, interceremonial or daily?
Okay, so
Another whole class.
that is definitely a whole class, Hendrik. That's a great question.
Yeah.
I do think we need to get into protection rights soon because it keeps coming up. So we're going to do a whole protection class, but a very simple one you can do day to day, like super easy. I do it all the time, like everywhere. Now I'll give you one simple one now, but a really one that's been passed down to me, not from Nefertiti, but from my teacher William J. Kiesel and from the Golden Dawn, but not just the Golden Dawn, more anyways, is a lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, and that's a very awesome one in ritual to do. And part of the key about doing rituals too is when we do rituals and we like really embody and get to know the details and the technology of the ritual and the purpose and the function and why, and we do it in this physical plane, when we get it like down so tight, we then can do it in our minds. So no matter where we are, we can perform the ritual. It's like the outer temple, and really getting the details of the outer temple and how it functions is so that we can do it on the inner temple. Like I've done the LBRP many times inside my mind when I felt like I've had to. But I can't do that until I'm like so clear and specific and I really know how to focus inside my mind and do it. So inner, that is the outer too, learning how to do the rituals on the inside, because sometimes it might seem funny to do the LBRP out in the street, but sometimes that's exactly what needs to happen because that will help or whatever. But anyways, simple one you can do every day, all day is this one. So you have your two fingers like this. I like to use these. I've been taught these are your fire fingers. Some people like to use their left. I like the right for will reasons, willful energy motion. You start at the bottom. You're drawing a pentagram. You start at the bottom and do your best to go from bottom up to the right. So at the bottom, then you go all the way to the top of the pentagram, the top of the point, then you go down to the right. Then you go up to the left, you cross over to the right, and you close to the left where you started. Now this is the 5 elements, So do it one more time. From the bottom left, from bottom up, you go bottom up to the top of the pentagram, down to the right corner, then over to the top left, over to the top right, and then you close in the bottom left. You do that 3 times. So you go 1, seal it 3 times.
And what way, counter or clockwise?
Clockwise.
From that point,
Yeah.
3 times, and then any of that same bottom left point.
Yeah. So you do clockwise, and then you clockwise, sealing it, ending at the bottom left point. So like when I'm in San Francisco, I use this example all the time because it's like very practical. When I'm in San Francisco, I've had my car broken into 3 times. I am not going to let that happen again, by the way. So pray to Allah and tie your camel too. Don't just leave your stuff and do this ritual and think it's all good. But like many times I'll put the pentagram symbol over my car. And sometimes
Is the from the Kabbalah?
This is not technically a Kabbalah ritual, but it is a Kabbalistic, as Kabbalists, a ritual that we do. You know, so it does line up with the tree of life for sure, because in the tree of life you have in like Tiferet, Netzach Hod. My brain here. Yeah. So you have Netzach and Hod, Gebra and Hesed, and then you have Doth. So you draw the pentagram in there. I don't know who asked that question, but that would be what that's for. Yeah. So yes, it can be in the tree of life. It's not just about the tree of life, though. It's very much related to the 5 elements: earth, air, fire, water, and ether. If you work in Chinese medicines or elementals, I'm not sure, but I'm pretty sure it lines up. I have seen charts where it does. But in the tree, think of Geber and Hesed for those of your tree of life people. Geber and Hesed and Netzach and Hod, and then the point being Doth for one of the pentagrams, because it also lines up in the lower tree too, and that's in another class because that you need to draw it and see it. So, but this one is just like or if you want to put like a little nice bubble over your young one that you love, a bubble of protection. Just seal.
We'll do a whole class on that though.
Yeah, we'll do a whole class on
Yes.
protection. Any other questions before we close?
I have a question on, can you reiterate the verbiage of the spinning in the shower 3 times?
Oh yeah, this comes from the Rocky Mountain Mystery School. You can implement whatever verbiage you like, but in the Rocky Mountain Mystery School, now the modern day Mystery School, as you soap up fully your hair, your everything, all of it, and it can be, I purify myself with this holy water, or I purify myself for healing. I cleanse myself. You know, you can put in a few words, but the function is purification and cleansing. Can be for something specifically too. Now, ideally, you would like soak everything up, say that chant, turn 3 times, washes it off, soak up again, say that chant, turn 3 times clockwise, wash it off, do it a third, say the chant, turn 3 times, cleanse it off. Working in 3s is always really great if you can. Okay, any more questions before I do closing? Okay, cool. All right, don't forget about your water, everybody. Drink your water. I'm just gonna make an offering to close, and then that's that. Cedar is so I like one with cedar so much right now. Okay.
Great class, baby.
First, I just want to say thank you to all of the ancestors that were speaking through each and every person here that led to this question and answer seed that was planted by Sonia that manifested very effortlessly here today. And I just want to say thank you because I learned so much, me personally learned so much in this journey, in this experience. I'm grateful for the learning and the teaching of the divination in the divination house, in the divination world of inquiry and question that guides and what wants to be manifested or brought forward. So thank you for that teaching. In that way, always, in deep reverence for the Oracle, for Nefertiti, for this board. And then also to all that you've brought forward today, may it be of great benefit and great use to each and every being here, human and non-human, to support one in one's life and one's purpose, one's destiny, what one wants for themselves and their relationships and service to something greater than to the unseen and the seen in this great time of turning. May everything that's been shared here also bring forward blessings and surprises and miracles in every corner and every direction. So those miracles, those surprises, that feeling of awe, the divine spark of wonderment can be this mythological landscape we're living in. the drama of our lives. That's just this made of wonder and awe that engages, innovative approaches and new ways and inspiration in collaboration with the human and non-human world to help steward this turning. And may wonder and awe be the inspiration for the world to blossom in front of us, even in our dark nights of the soul when we're going through it. May that wonder and awe into the dark night of the soul that we're in bring forward blossoming in consciousness. And in that way, blossoming inside and outside in every direction. So that every moment that we're living and every moment that we're being in this art of becoming, that we see into this great web of life and web of relations that is filled with pollinating beauty in every direction. It inspires us to continue to be pollinators, to make a beautiful world that is useful and of great benefit to 7 generations into the future and beyond. And too, in this time, as we are opening up more access into the innate intelligence in our own cosmologies, and that way tapping into the technologies of these ancient cosmologies. That this beautiful weaving that is the body of Neith, that we are part of weaving, be so comfortable and cozy and supportive and a net for us and those we love, and to relax into and surrender and adapt to these changes. And may we weave a net that feels like that, feels nourishing. Nourishing to our hearts, minds, bodies, and spirits, and nourishing to all of our relations just like that. And that way, thank you again to all of the Neteru. Thank you to Newt, Seshata Neteru. And thank you to Shu and Tefnut, and Geb Oser Ma'at. And thank you to Tehuti, me, Ampu, Nebhet, Ner and Rek, Sirket, Sekmet, Aset. Thank you. And thank you to all of our ancestors, each and every one of ours, benevolent guides and allies. And also thank you again to these ancestral homelands that we've been weaving together through these ceremonies here, through the web, through the body. Thank you, everyone. Blessings on our lives and all our relations.
We love you.
Love you all.
Thank you, gratitude, thank you, hearts. Thank you.